Welcome back, my friends, to a new Kerbal Space Program video, and welcome, dear judges or dear judge. So for those, well, first of all, this is not just a regular special Kerbal Space Program video, but it is also a my submission to the latest Kerbal Space Program Discord server challenge. The challenge started on the 9th of August 2018, of course, and it reads as like follows. And by the way, I'm entering for either for the hard mode or for the super mode. So first of all, the hard mode is launch 5 different satellites to 5 different celestial bodies, whereof 2 of them are different planets. Kerbin, of course, does not count. Well, and Minmus and the Moon. So as you saw already in the VAB, I have showed you the craft. Here we have, well, and during takeoff, so there should be more or less everything, all the footage that is necessary for the entry should be in there. I've only done a few cuts there, here and there, where I was AFK, for example, for some time, and some reloading. I had to reload, I guess, 3 times or so, and at least one of those reloads is cut out. Okay, now onto the mission here. As you can see here, even though, well, because I'm more or less was aiming at the beginning of my mission for a super mode, so that means, for those who don't know, super mode is you not only have to complete the hard mode, but you have to kind of go even further and beyond. And in my idea was that I would not only send satellites to multiple planetary bodies and multiple everything, and I decided to go, let's go for the Moon and Minmus as well. So why not? Because they are right at the doorstep, and if we're already doing that, why not? So that's if you're asking why am I sending satellites to sad locations even though they don't count. And there was a small retrograde burn, which was the remaining satellite of a test launch earlier, where I just tried to get into orbit and separated everything. So, and by the way, I haven't still touched up on the time acceleration factor. It is a times 10, I think. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's quite times 10, and that's the fastest time acceleration I've ever done on my channel. So I hope it is not too fast, because even now during the post commentary it is moving really fast, and I'm barely able to touch on those things that I really want to touch on. Now on to what I'm trying to do here is, well, first of all, our goal is to get to how's it called? Eve. They go to Eve and set their detach their one of our satellites to kind of be done with Eve and complete, let's say, 1/5 of the hard mode part. So we have to send to 5 different celestial bodies. So Eve was more or less number 1 on that list. And from there on, I plan to go with a gravity assist, moving into the further outer reach of the solar system. However, I'm not really good with gravity assists in kind of Eve, Kerbin, Duna, so it totally didn't work out. So, well, we are going to do some sort of gravity assist, but just some sort, that is, nothing really interesting. So there we go, now detaching our Duna satellite. By the way, earlier I detached the jumped back to the Minmus satellite to make a screenshot. So in order I probably will have enough screenshots of all bodies where we have sent our satellites to, but I'm not quite sure. I haven't actually checked up on those screenshots yet. Probably for the thumbnail of the video and Instagram story I'll do that. And yeah, by the way, if I have one more question actually. Before I go with the question, I would like to touch up on what I'm doing here is the gravity assist, and then a later course correction, well, later during the orbit, in order to get the Duna encounter. But yeah, you can see me fiddling there quite a lot. But now onto what I wanted to ask, or so kind of earlier, was dear judges, or the guy who is forced or so to watch my video here, in order to kind of have a look whether my registration passes and I complete the challenge, I have a question. Is this kind of video too long for you, or what would you kind of appreciate? So first of all, I'd like to, for my next submission, if I'm going to do another one, which I probably will do, I'd like to do a video again, but tell me kind of, should I do a music video kind of even faster, or yeah, just with my regular commentary like right now. And for this episode, of course, well, general video, I would, well, if I were to do the mission again, even without kind of being able to kind of submit it with my regular commentary, I'd still do a regular commentary mission for my channel. Just okay, this was maybe a little bit confusing, but now that that's also out of the way, I guess we can move on and have a look how beautiful Eve can be. So now raising our periapsis, because I'd like to leave those satellites, or not all of them, but most of them, in a decent orbit, so nothing ridiculous, just something that is also neat and where we can actually use them as relays, because that's also one of the most important parts, well, not most important parts, but one of the things I was also trying to do is to leave those satellites operational in order so that we can actually use them in further missions where we're going to use, again, probe cores, so we have good communication, a good comms array throughout the entire solar system. Well, Kerbal system actually. So, and here we are going to burn for an extremely inefficient waste of liquid fuel and oxidizer type of burn. We're going to go directly to Joule, and not burning at periapsis is not efficient at all. Really, it's not efficient, and it kind of was not the best choice. However, it was actually kind of, we had enough fuel, so that's why I actually went with it. Having enough fuel was really a good thing to do, especially for the first challenge, doing a rather easy challenge, because this challenge, well, hard mode is not that hard in my opinion, so that's why I was also aiming for the super mode. And like I said, if I pass for super mode, I'd be happy to kind of get that notification or so. And if I only go for pass on hard mode, then that's fine too. Well, for the first challenge, I guess that's not too bad. Yes, and probably gonna do other challenge videos and challenges just generally here on the, yeah, on this kind of challenges from this Discord server. Now, going into the Julian, I don't know, Julian system here, and detaching our first satellite, which will enter orbit around Lathe, I think it was. Yes, Lathe. There you go, entering Lathe. Well, we are going to use Lathe's gravity to capture us in the Julian system without spending any fuel at all. Then detaching our satellite while we're on a kind of in the sphere of influence, and then slowing down and getting into an orbit. And now we're gonna start the slightly kind of main part, in my opinion at least, or that's the way I planned it. So you guys can see here multiple satellites, like to be exact 5 satellites at the very front of this craft, which were also shown in the VAB briefly. This is the, let's say in air quotes, my Joule 5 group, so it's not a Joule 5 mission obviously, but it is kind of the goal of those satellites is getting into an orbit around all 5 moons of Joule, which would, if I were would have only done this mission, kind of only gone for Joule, I would actually only go through the normal mode, because on the hard mode you have to visit 2 planets. Yeah, there you go, 2 are different planets, which means we can't just go to Joule and visit all moons and pass. And there you saw I detached those 2 segments. The upper segment is the Joule 5 segment, which will continue going around here in the Julian system, visiting all planets, no, not all planets, going to every single moon and getting an encounter with them, and detaching the satellite and getting the satellite into an orbit. So Tylo, I think, no, that's Val, I think, yeah, no, God, I'm still terrible with those moons. I only know, actually, I only know Lathe. Everything else is kind of, yeah, the same. So, but I think going by, this is Tyler. And now waiting on the screen for the screen to show up. And we're in high space. I can't see it, goddammit. Probably Tyler. I'll stick with Tyler, actually. You guys can tell me whether it was Tyler or not, by the way, in the comments down below. Now we're gonna go for the, oh yeah, here I made a pretty stupid mistake actually, but whatever, you'll see it. Anyways, yeah, as I said earlier, if we were to only do this mission part without Eve in the beginning, we wouldn't be able to qualify. However, we left the other part, the lower part of our stage, in orbit, kind of in this eccentric orbit around Joule, so we're going to use it again to drop down into the core of the solar system. And now we're going to plan another maneuver node. Now, not quite sure what my goal is. Oh, Bob or so. One of the small moons, of course. And God, this music at 9 or 10 times regular speed is just ridiculous. Holy, I'll probably lower the sound, especially in the beginning, otherwise you wouldn't be able to hear me. Thanks to the really powerful engines on the launch vehicle, which was not that overpowered, surprisingly actually. And we are in Bob or Paul, I have no clue. Like I said, I don't know those satellites, those moons yet. There you go, now we are at this craft which will plummet down towards the center of the solar system slightly later on. However, but first I have to correct my mistake, because I forgot to kind of to capture burn once we had our encounter with this small moon over here. So that's what we had to, oh, and that's Paul, that's Paul. The other one was Bob. So where was I? Yeah, I forgot to switch to this craft when we had the encounter and then capture ourselves in an orbit. So yeah, that's why we had to redo the encounter burn and now capture. But with that, we actually completed everything in the Julian system. Now it was a time to get from kind of, I was waiting and a little bit thinking, not quite sure actually what my plan was, how to plummet down. So my entire idea and my plan on this at that time were to fall down towards the solar system and either do a gravity assist and slow down in a slightly lower orbit around, kind of, yeah, not high orbit around the sun, and then go to Moho and or Duna. Well, actually, first to Duna was my plan and then to Moho, or first to Moho and then to Duna, depending on how we would be able to kind of get our encounters. And here you can see, this is where I'm going to reload actually. We are still in a very high orbit and we can't get an encounter, even though we would spend 2000 meters per second of delta V. So reloading, I think reloading is actually allowed. If not, then I'm pretty much screwed, because I had to reload those few times. Now doing this other burn, like the second try, and this one should actually be good enough. See, there we're gonna jump down into a perfect encounter, almost, not quite perfect. We have to do this medium correction burn, or we'll have to do a medium correction burn of around 350 meters per second to get a good encounter with, a very close encounter with Duna. And from there on, I would wanted to jump down onto Moho, so we could have actually been able to do every major body, so Elu and Dres. You know, I don't really visit them that often, except if I think about that, I actually did a single launch mobile base to Dres video, I think a week or two ago. So that was actually a good thing. So I mean, I visited Dres again. So I mean, people are not really fond of Dres. So we have to give love to Dres, you know. Anyways, now here we are at Duna, and I decided to go because Ike is quite a big moon, around the same size as our own moon, I think. So that's why we're gonna capture ourselves around Ike as well. And then I lost my satellite. I had no idea where this satellite went, so I tried to switch to it, but I couldn't find it on the map screen. Thus I had to reload again. And luckily the last quick save was not too far away, and here we have another pretty stupid mistake by me. So I equipped those later engines, well yeah, later satellites, only with a small ant engine with a terrible thrust to weight ratio, and that's why we had to burn, well, or I had to burn for quite a while. Even though with 10 times regular speed it takes quite long to slow down and get in orbit around Ike. And now before the video is finished, I'd like to say first of all thanks very much for watching, and until next time. And a small side note, I didn't visit Moho because the craft was not really stable after we deployed our Duna satellite. And now once again, thanks very much for watching, until next time.